You are listening to the Mary Jane Society podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel. Today we're welcoming the team behind Vitabudz, a New York City legacy street brand making the leap into the legal cannabis market. Founded by brothers Jullian and Rich Murray, Vitabudz has teamed up with veteran cultivator Aaron Field to bring their passion for top-shelf, regeneratively grown cannabis to the New York marketplace. Their story is rooted in experience, with Jullian, Rich, and Aaron honing their cultivation skills in Colorado and California before returning home to New York, ready to take on the state's fast-growing legal industry. We dive into Aaron's sustainable farming practices, the Murray brothers' journey from the streets of Brooklyn to building a recognized brand, and their strategy for marketing their flower and edibles in this new competitive landscape. Let's find out how Vitabudz plans to stand out and thrive in New York's evolving cannabis scene.
If you both could just give us a little overview, and then we're going to jump into your business here in New York.
Well, we're definitely from New York, Brooklyn, Flatbush to be specific.
Oh.
A very Caribbean community with Caribbean parents. So we were raised in the cannabis culture and have always been around it. The brand is a legacy brand, so it's actually from the streets of New York. And Hennep has supported us to becoming a legal brand. So that's how they're backing us to help us get into the New York market.
So were you growing in New York and or distributing? Were you distributors?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Both. So yeah. we were distributing and we were growing in New York, growing small scale with, nothing like what Aaron's doing, more like basement style grow, 1 bedroom style thing. Mm-hmm. But we would supplement our cannabis with cannabis from California.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a cultivation background, not just a distribution background.
Yeah, that's what made us different, was the fact that I was actually somebody with cultivation, and I worked directly with farmers, where a lot of the stuff that was on the streets was just like you get it from middlemen and there was no information behind it. Nobody knew the farmers. So once they decided to go legal, we was like, hey, this would be a perfect way for us to get into the legal market by being that transparency group, bringing the farm to the consumers.
Yeah.
And that's what Vitabudz really locked in on, and really locked in on sun-grown and soil-grown flower. Just because as we got educated over time, we realized this was the best way to do it. So the farmers that we were working with were really California-based farmers in those mountains, like in Humboldt. Yeah, we actually went back and forth to California. As the more I got into growing, the more education I got. My first time leaving the state was to actually go to Colorado. I moved to Colorado to grow. I stayed out there about 8 months, and then got homesick and went back home. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I was like, yo, from here going forward, I'm going to go to California, because the education I got in Colorado led me to the Emerald Triangle, and how knowledgeable or how experienced the people in the Emerald Triangle was.
Right. I know that seems like quite the education. Yeah.
Oh, that was the best, honestly.
Yeah.
The best move I made was going out there. And because at first I was just selling popular name brand stuff, what the market was asking for. I wasn't really leaning into the education point. I was just trying to make some money. But once I got out there, they came at me with the whole education angle, and it was refreshing.
Aaron, tell us about your background.
Yeah, so I moved out to Colorado in 2009. I grew up in upstate New York, right in the middle of the state near Syracuse. And I had some life changes in my mid-20s, was married real young, got divorced, and then was like, let's go do something cool. I moved to Colorado mainly to snowboard and be in that nature and mountains. But I wasn't even into weed yet at that point, really. I mean, I smoked a little bit when I was a teenager, but once I got out there and the industry was opening up in 2009, they had a medical program that had been in place, I think, since the 90s, but the Obama administration issued the Cole memo, which defunded the federal government agencies like the DEA and stuff from coming into states that had medical programs and prosecuting people at the federal level. So at that point in 2009, when that happened, the whole scene just started to pop off and dispensaries were opening everywhere. So I was growing at home and was falling in love with it. And I was like, this is so much fun. It's so awesome. These are the days when you could load up a couple pounds in a backpack and go to a store and they'd pay you $5,000 a pound, to grab your stuff. So I was very quickly like, I need to quit my corporate sales job here and come do this because it's way more fun. So I grew at home and on that side of things in the quasi-legal market for about a couple of years until the laws in Colorado changed to say that dispensaries need to grow 70% of their own product. And at that point, all these big commercial grows started opening up, warehouses and things like that. So I got my first job running a warehouse that was like 15,000 square feet and had a few hundred lights in it. I ran that for a couple of years while I still had my gray market side projects going, couple of houses, and those were the good old days. Those were like the years of prosperity for cannabis. There is literally the Wild West out there. Yeah. But my career evolved as the industry matured. I began working for some of the larger players as they started to emerge. And, I got really privileged to work in some of the large facilities and to develop a background of big scale commercial production. So, the facilities I've been in are some of the largest in the world, hundreds of thousands of square feet. And I cut my teeth learning to yield heavy and produce for production purposes. So that was my initial foundation, as it was a commercial mindset. I didn't spend a lot of time growing at home or anything. I kind of just jumped right in and within the first couple of years of becoming a cultivator, I was doing large scale. And I then started probably 8-9 years ago now, becoming exposed to organics. Because when we first started, I just doing it the way everybody does it, which is, with hydroponic or inert mediums, no nutrient value there, and it's just a substrate for the roots to grow into and the plant to support itself, and then you feed fertilizer to it. So to this day, that's still how 95+% of all the cannabis out there is grown. But I had a trimmer at one of my early commercial jobs who had incredible weed all the time, and we were going on smoke breaks at lunch and stuff, and he just was like, he wouldn't smoke our weed. And I was like, what's your problem, dude? Like, our weed's really good. And I thought I knew what I was doing, but he was like, no, you gotta try this. So after about a month of smoking this stuff with him on lunch break all the time, I finally started to admit that I didn't know a lot. And I was like, why is this so good? And he's like, because it's grown with water only. There's no fertilizer. There's no nutrients being fed to it. And it's just a natural soil that has nutrition in it, but he's feeding just water, and I was like, oh, I got to figure this out. So that's when I started making the conversion to living soil, but I already had the production background under my belt. So I was like, I need to figure out how to adapt this. And there wasn't a lot of people doing it. Like at that time, there was nobody really doing large scale indoor or controlled environment living soil. And I have a lot of pioneers to thank who really mentored me or like freely gave out information on what they were doing and how they were doing it. Like, Build the Soil and Jeremy Silva. Ian from Mountain Organics was another big influence on me. Living Soil Cultivator out in California. And these guys had websites and they were on the forums, like the grow forums, sharing their information freely and showing you how to make the soil blends that they were doing, how to mulch for nutrition, how to, just do things in a natural way. But it was ways to do it at scale. So some of it was my ideas, a lot of it was other people's ideas, but I slowly but surely started developing systems of my own. I spent a few years doing outdoor cultivation at really large scale, hundreds of acres of outdoor. So I got that experience as well. And I guess long story short, I ended up back here in New York after years of really trying to make it in Colorado. The last gig I had was one of the largest living soil indoor cultivations I think that exists today. It's probably about 75,000 square feet. It's called Eden. I helped, they're in Colorado. They're a single source hash company, which is very successful today. And, when I came in, they were a startup that was just what they were doing, but I had the commercial background along with the living soil focus, and really got to prove out at a very large scale in that facility what is possible. And now I've got this methodology that I can take anywhere. I moved back to New York and was consulting for a while, and we've had some great success with some of my consulting clients that are now in full swing, entering competitions and sweeping them, just winning awards. And I got asked to be a partner in the business of my own here. So today I am running a startup that's a New York State micro license, and we're using, my methodologies, and it's just something at this point I've done over and over again. I know it works, and it's all about the quality for me. So, that comes first. I fell in love with the plant and growing it, but I really fell in love with the plant, like the plant itself, not the money it makes you or the clout or notoriety you can get as a grower in a large facility. It's really just about the plant, which is why, when my buddy had the weed that was better than mine, I was like, man, this is I don't care if it yields less or whatever, or if I have a big learning curve, I have to figure this out because I want to be able to grow quality like this. So today that's what I'm doing. And, I'm sitting here in the canopy, but see if, you can get a little look at what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Looks
Oh,
amazing.
cool.
Awesome flowers.
So is that completely indoor? It's an indoor facility. It's not a greenhouse, right?
Well, it's completely climate controlled. So it's basically indoor with, if you look up here, this is a greenhouse. So we have sunlight as well. But this facility, it's not very big. We have a micro license, so we're allowed 5,000 square feet of production, which is less than a tenth of what I'm used to operating.
Right. So that's,
but it's amazing. It's just me and one of my partners here part-time. We're running this whole thing ourselves, and the attention to detail I get to put into it is really fantastic. We can dial in this quality, and we're excited to be partnering with Jullian on the distribution and retail side. I think they're doing an amazing job with the brand they're building. And, I'm a grower. I'm not not a marketer or a salesperson anymore. So really, we need to. It's success in this business. I think depends a lot on who you're partnered with.
Yeah.
Finding the right people who are aligned with your values and that can handle the aspects of the business that need to be handled. That you, if you get real with yourself, you're never going to do it. Like, I'm not going to create marketing material.
Yeah, you can't. You have a job. You can't spread yourself thin, or you really can't get the business going. It just, you can't do everything yourself. And
the overall success here is a combination of a number of things, but it's sunlight for one. I think like there's a huge misconception in the consumer space that indoor is somehow better. Well, what we have here is indoor. Like, I have a very tight control over my environment, but I also have full spectrum sun. So that's huge. The plant's it's a different plant under the sun than it is under grow lights. That's been proven in the chemical analysis from testing labs. And if you're a grower and you've ever grown under the sun, that's all you got to do is do it once and you see the difference. Mm-hmm. So sunlight's one, living soil is another. This methodology is completely reliant on biologically delivered nutrition. So instead of feeding fertilizer for my nutrients, the soil food web, which is a conglomeration of organisms, all the way from single-celled bacteria up to, fungus and protozoa, nematodes, and microarthropods. There's a whole web of life. And I've got earthworms and bugs and soil mites. And I mean, there's literally millions of species of different life forms that are present in our living soil. And you can look at, what we're doing here. I've got cover crops growing. I've got decomposing mulch. It's a real ecosystem. It's alive. And the nutrients these plants uptake are coming from the solution of water that's in the soil, but they're put there by biology, not some bottle of fertilizer that I mix into my water. It's like I put plain water in here, and then all of those organisms that I mentioned start cycling the nutrition. And they're living, dying, pooping, peeing, getting grazed upon by higher forms of life. And it's all putting nutrients into the soil solution naturally. Those nutrients are far more complex compounds than what we can make in a fertilizer factory. You get, for nitrogen, you get ammonium and nitrate. Well, my nitrogen is complex amino acids and organic compounds, all the way up to fats and proteins and lipids and things that you can't buy in a product. Yet plants will absorb these large compounds in nature. So, why would I try and shortcut what is already perfectly designed? Now, I put my own touches on it, and, like, the environment's not controlled in nature, but I have my humidity set at a certain point all the time. So we mimic nature in some ways, and then we augment or add our own controls in others. And ultimately, we're just tweaking all the time to figure out what produces the best result. And what you're seeing here is 15 years of my experience, just grow after grow after grow, saying, okay, what can I change next time to get a little bit better and a little bit better? And, I'm never done. There's always more I don't know.
That's great. I feel like highlighting these specifics is really important to educate, people and the consumers on the quality of your products and what you guys are really going for. I think that's so important. So, when you guys met, I know, Aaron, you already, I think, had a brand in the marketplace, and your farm was up and going. Is that right? And then when Julie, so you were waiting for your micro license?
I was consulting at that time, and I was working at Taproot Fields, which is another micro license in the Finger Lakes. And we were actually down in New York touring compost facilities because we were trying to get a little bit of insight on how people run larger scale composting operations. And Daniela had some connections around the city that were willing to let us come visit.
Okay, so then you guys, and then Julian, where were you at this point? Were you still doing your own,
Yeah, actually, I was running my legacy brand, and I had applied for the license, right? So we had put in for the license, and I was in the CCTM program, which is like the training the OCM offered. So I was in that program. That's how I met Daniela. And then she knew that we were champion soil and sun grown. So that's why she was like, I got to introduce you to some New Yorkers that do this, because I was telling her all about the California people. So she was like, no, there's some good weed here in New York, and I got to introduce you. And that's how I met Aaron. And like he said, the conversation was, we were talking the same language. So we just immediately started working together at that point. You know what I mean? Like Aaron teaches classes and I throw events. So we were just trying to figure out how can we do these together, you know what I mean, to continue the education. And and we've been here ever since.
So then you created a brand together.
Well, technically, so my brand is Vitabudz, and Vitabudz will be white labeling Aaron's Cannabis into our packaging, because our strength is marketing and events and getting out in the community. Since we're based in New York, and since Aaron and these guys are up in the farms, they don't really have the time to or the legwork to do it, right? Because if you start doing all of this, you're neglecting the plants.
So was Vitabudz the brand on the street that you package, and that's how you got rid of
Yes.
stuff? Okay, so that has been out there. So are you just going to be doing flour, or do you have plans to do extracts, gummies?
We launched with gummies.
Okay.
And
Oh, yeah, I tried their gummies. They were great, actually.
That's the event we met at, right, Pam?
What is it?
The event we met at was their gummy launch party, right?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, yes, I had that. And so live resin is going to be, you're only going to do live resin gummies, or is it going to be distillate?
Never distillate.
Okay, thank God.
No, never distillate. We
Okay.
are, I don't want to say like, we just know that there's better stuff out there, and we don't want to get into this race to the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And the way to avoid that is to really build a brand. Like brands, when the market starts going down, if you got a solid base, you can hold your place. So that's our philosophy, is to really stick to quality first, education second. You know what I mean? And that we think will hold us, hoping that it'll hold us, because I've been going to Cali for years. The people in Cali that are struggling are the people that didn't put in the work to create brand loyalty. People are not that loyal. You know what I mean? If there's good over here, you'll go over here, you'll go over there. You know what I mean? So you got to put the marketing and the effort in, the education, so that people become loyal to your brand, and then they know they can trust the quality. They're not going to go anywhere.
Do you think the market's ready for the live resin products? I feel like, I know there's a couple that are coming out. MFNY is one, and maybe a couple other, but
I don't think they know the difference at this point. So that's why the emphasis is education. Like the people that are walking into the dispensaries are not like the legacy consumers. The legacy consumers, they've been around, they got a guide, they've been educated or brainwashed for years. You know what I mean? But the people that seem to be walking into dispensaries for the most part are like curious people that, want to try something, want to know it's safe. There's a lot of older people. So to me, they just need to be educated. And the way we plan to do that is educate the bud tenders, since they're the ones talking to them. And then hopefully the bud tenders can translate some of this stuff. And as people get educated, they'll make better choices.
Yeah, that's where I keep hearing over and over again, brands are saying the biggest benefit for their bang for their buck in the marketing is working with those bud tenders and educating them.
Yeah, they're
And
restricted so much on what you can do, like on social media or in, any kind of advertising, that the true conversations, and it's also what's worked for us in the streets forever, was building those relationships with the consumers, talking directly to people. So again, who does that? The bud tenders. It's going to be multiple types of events because we want to focus on the community, building the community. Um, the bud tender get paid like $20 an hour max, 25 if they're in like late bloomers, someplace where they really care about the bud tender. So for the most part, they're like young people that are creatives that got other kinds of talents. They're from, they're artists and so on and so forth. So we want to create space that they can be comfortable expressing themselves, possibly getting opportunities and eyesights on them. So we're going to do comedy shows. We're going to do like small musical events. We're going to continue with the grow classes led by my guy, Aaron, over here. And still do other educational panels. So we're trying to create a nice mix of things so that we can hold on to as many people as we can, right? Because people are in little silos and little pockets, and you want to meet them where they're at and see how many of them that we could bring over to the Vitabudz world. You know what I mean? Yeah, sampling is definitely the number one way. And again, even for like a bud tender that's talking to the consumers, that's the only way they can make a real recommendation.
yeah, you've got to give samples to the bud tenders.
Yeah. So here, I got something to say about that real quick, because this is, you guys are right, it's very effective, but it becomes tricky with an operation like mine. Now, gummies from Jullian, maybe you'll have a little more ability to do it with that SKU. But when it comes to flower, we're looking here at only a quarter of our license is even built out. So I've got about 1,280 square feet canopy in this greenhouse. It's really nothing. I'm going to yield, 100 pounds to 100 and, somewhere in the low hundreds range probably out of this run here of flower. I'll have material to make other things out of. But when it comes to flower, the amount that we produce is so little that giving out a lot of samples becomes a little bit untenable. It costs us a lot, for one, if we were to get, especially sampling on the level of someone like Heirloom. Heirloom is a beverage company already. But that's my hometown of Lafayette, where I grew up, is actually Heirloom. I know those guys. They have a very successful orchard and a alcohol beverage called 1911 that's regionally distributed in many states. So they already are funded. They have the capacity to produce and distribute in a way that a startup like ours, especially a small micro license, does not. So when sampling is so effective, you got to look at, for us, like, is that something we even need to do? Partnering with Jullian and Vitabudz, we're going to be able to do that in small targeted ways, like a launch party, like the one that we met at, where we get a bunch of bud tenders, store managers, dispensary owners together, and we say, hey, this is our product, this is how we do it, quick little education on how it's produced, and here's a bunch of samples, here's all at one little event, and that should create enough hype and enough interest that, really, we got a couple partnerships that will probably take it all in one shot. And it's kind of an interesting position to be in, because this is a very craft product here. And Jullian and I share the same passion for quality and craft cannabis. We have an opportunity to be selective and say, check out our product. If you agree, which we think you will, that this is some of the best of the best out there, we want to be very careful about who we partner with. And we want to be with people who appreciate and understand what we're doing. We'll push it and move the product through the dispensary, but also we're thinking long term. Like, who can we grow with? Who's going to be here in 5 years? Who is, because I'm not going to be at 1,280 square feet forever. In fact, I very quickly want to get maxed out on this license and then start running some other licenses as well. And I'd like to see multiple grows like this under our umbrella, partnered with Vitabudz, partnered with, whoever. Our farm has a brand of its own called High Priority. So we don't know exactly where all it's going yet, but to grow at the pace of our demand and to get the product out there strategically in the right places, that's where, I think Jullian and his team have some real mastery that together, my job is bring the quality, right? And eventually it's going to be bring the quantity when I have the ability to scale up too.
Right.
But in the meantime, these guys' job is get us in the right places, form the relationships, do the building with the bud tenders, those relationships and the education there. Get them the samples, because we can't set up at every event like Heirloom and sponsor every event and give out, hundreds of cans of drinks or whatever. Like we just can't do that, so it's up to Jullian and his team to target market for us.
Right. Wow. Really good point. I didn't even think about that aspect of it. So are you targeting, since Jullian and you and your brother are really in the city, are you targeting dispensaries in the city and consumers so you can kind of just really work it here?
Yeah.
We are targeting in the city, but we're also looking at Westchester and the Hudson Valley. So it's just, and okay, so like a lot of these dispensaries, they're turning into chains, like 3-store chains. So like Emerald is one, and that's in the city. It's also got 2 locations in Brooklyn. Belief is in Long Island and Brooklyn. So we're doing those so that way we can have strategic, like be available in locations for some people that just like, hey, it's never around. There'll be some in Long Island. The majority of it'll be in the city, and but there'll be some in the Hudson Valley. There'll be some in Westchester, just to make sure everybody can get a taste of it. And we're trying to put the gummies everywhere. So the flower is limited. You'll get to see what the flower is like, but what'll be readily available for now will only be gummies, and the flower will be dropped at events. Like he said, where we're thinking we could pre-sell this. I know we could pre-sell this stuff. It's just by him posting daily and being transparent about it, the interest is building.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I read that stuff on Instagram. I know there's a lot of growers. Is that where you are, Aaron, on Instagram posting?
Yeah, primarily.
Yeah, I feel like that's where the growers are. And I love to look at that stuff, get those explanations, educational pieces. That's how I've kind of learned too. So what type of strains are you focusing on? How many are you coming out with for Vitabudz?
We're not really focusing on cultivars as much as we're focusing on effects. So we got 3 main effect categories: hype, rest, and bliss. And the cultivars, the strains may change within each one of those effects, because some plants give you the similar or same effects. And that's how we're kind of doing it, right? So like Aaron is growing like, I don't know, 20 different strains over there, right? So we're not going to say that, hey, we're just being strain specific. If this one terpene profile and flavonoids and effects lands in the rest area, we'll put we'll put those over there as well. You know what I mean? And it might be 3 or 4 different cultivars in there, you know,
Right.
but then it might only be like sour diesel alone inside the sativa, because people don't really tend to grow so many sativas. And I'm thinking because they just take longer to grow. And, you know, guys are like trying to turn things over quickly, but they're the most in demand in the 5 boroughs.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
on the marketing side, Jullian has categories, and it's geared towards consumers that want to know about effect, right? My job is cultivar selection and curation of the best. So I think that way, while Jullian thinks this way, and we'll be supplying things that we'll get to say, okay, this really fits into your bliss category. This fits into the hype category. But it's this specific strain. And genetics are a huge, huge part of quality and yield. So that's my department. I'm dialing in what the specific cultivars are, and we'll be coming with different drops at events, like Jullian said. Maybe the rest variety is going to be our Kush mints this time.
Mhm.
And Jullian's marketing team will put together marketing that says, hey, on this date, we're going to have the Kush mints special, drop over here at B-Leaf or at NYC Bud or whatever, partner retailer we're going to hold the event with. And hopefully the marketing is good enough, and nobody's even tried the product yet. Once they try the product, I mean, good stuff sells itself, and word of mouth travels. That's going to be a big part of it. But we hope to have lines outdoors, pre-sales done,
Oh, pre-sales. That's what you were saying. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, at least like from the wholesale to retail perspective, like we will know, okay, so-and-so dispensary is going to take 5 pounds. And then we're going to use that 5 pounds for this event. Jullian will market the event. And, if there's enough hype and attention on it at that point, then people will just be waiting for it. And it might take a cycle or two to really get the word out there, to the point where we have lines outdoors and things like that. But that's what we're really going for. Like I said, the micro license, we produce so little that really, 5 or 6 different brands of retailers doing drop events with us every 2-3 weeks, every month, something like that. They're going to eat up our entire supply, no problem. So I'm talking, somebody will get 500 bags. It's all needs to happen is 200-300 people come through and buy a few bags each, and we're done. That's going to sell out. That's going to sell out our harvest in a week or less. So that's the thing. And then people are waiting another 3 months, another 2 to 3 months for our next harvest. And we won't be the only weed that Jullian has in the Vitabudz packaging, but we'll be filling a specific category for them. And then, because, until we're scaled up, we can't supply enough for the whole brand to be built on it.
I mean, you're going to supply the drop culture part for now.
Yeah.
And in addition to all the terpenes that you're looking at in the profiles, are you also looking at cannabinoids? Like, are
Absolutely.
like, so you're the CBNs or whatever,
So like back to the gummies, the rest has CBN, the Bliss has CBG, and the Hype has THCV.
Oh yeah, the THCV. Been hearing a lot of that.
Well, it's very popular for 2 reasons. One, of course, it helps with the focus, but I'm hearing that it also is like an appetite suppressant, which is wild for cannabis, because, usually gives you the munchies. So people are like, wow, I can get high and not get the munchies. Then we had a strain called Pink Boost that we used to carry, and it would sell all the time because of that reason. Like people are like, this won't give me the munchies. I could smoke this and not feel like I got to eat the fridge down.
Right. So what kind of challenges are you facing with the retailers and with distribution? I don't know. I mean, I know you're just coming out into the market. So not even like what you're facing with the retailers. Are there too many brands out there? Is it hard to get into stores? What are their challenges?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's too many brands, but there are a lot of what we call like MSO brands, like these big multi-state operators, and they secure a lot of the real estate. Like they can offer small businesses a lot more. Like Aaron was just saying, Heirloom can give you, here's 100 cans on the house, put my gummies in your store. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
mm,
Things like that. They got all these other incentives. And our only incentive is we have good product and education. So that is the biggest challenge is we don't have necessarily the financial rewards to
mm,
give to these dispensaries. And some of these dispensaries are struggling. So of course they're going to take it. You know what I mean? Some of
yeah.
them are brand new and they're trying to build out and, somebody comes and offers them free product that they could turn into cash. Of course they're going to allow them in the show. But is it any good? Doesn't that distillate gummy give people headaches? Like, why are you pushing that? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think we just gotta keep going door to door and getting to know the actual each individual dispensary and find the good people, find our people. Because
Right.
once we find our people, because they exist, that's why I love cannabis, because they've been here in cannabis. Like cannabis has been educating me. It's never judged me. You know what I mean? Like it's been welcoming and warm the whole time for me since I've been dealing with cannabis. You know what I mean? And those people are in here. I just got to get past the chads and find those people. And I think those people will appreciate Aaron's cultivars, Aaron's, cannabis, Aaron's grow method, the love that he puts into it. And
Yeah.
that's how we will survive.